Welcome back to American Textbook Reading. I'm Brian Stewart. Today we're going to talk about explorers and early Americans. So today you will discover about who were the first settlers to come to America and the route where the early Americans say. So don't confuse with that. I just write a set here showing the pronunciations of the word. So route can be pronounced two different ways. The first way is route. Pronounce it with me. Route. 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 Route can also be the word route. Route rhymes with shout. Shout. Or, so the sentence is, which route did you take? Which route did you take? So route easily is spelled like this, but most commonly route is spelled like this. But route is spelled like this. So two different ways, route and route. You see, route doesn't have an E. Route doesn't have an E. But route has an E. So that's how you explain those words apart. Let me erase it. So now, let's move on to the vocabulary section. The vocabulary section has some difficult words. Some are difficult and some are not difficult. The first word is journey. Journey. Pronounce it with me. Journey. Here's you spell it. Journey. Journey. So, just like here, you have a boat, and then you cross the sea. You cross the wet sea. There, that's the sea, and that's the water surrounding you. And you came from Australia, for example. You came from Australia. Here's Australia. So you came from Australia. Here's where you came from. Here's you. Here is you. And then you travel to the boat. There you travel to the boat. This is the boat that you went on. And then you rode on a boat to another country. For example, this is Germany, for example, and this is a part of the boot-kicking Sicily, there, and actually this is the one. And then we have Italy, and then I just cut off Greece. There, that's Greece. So I just cut off that guy. So imagine you are from Australia, okay? The letter A from Australia, and then you go to America. So, what is your trip called? It's not called a trip if you rode on an airplane like this. If you rode on an airplane to America, that's just called a trip. It's not called a journey. But if you send a boat for a long, long time, then it will be a journey. So that's how we understand trip and journey. So that's how you pronounce it. Let me erase it. So now, let me erase all of it. I think it's drawing too much. There. I'll leave a few lines because this board is a little big. So I'll leave a few lines. You can also see Paul. There. Finish. So, excuse me. So now, let's begin with the next word. The next word is explore. Explore. So, the explore word comes from the word explorer. Explorer. Explore. Explorer. Explore. Explorer. Explore. So that's how you pronounce it. Explore. Explorer. That's how you do it. So, imagine you are in your home, for example. This is I, here's you, and then you're in your home. Okay? You're in your home watching television. Suddenly a wind carried you, here's you, and a wind carried you into a hurricane. There is the hurricane, and the hurricane dropped you down to a forest. Here's the forest trees. I'm a very good artist. I'm just telling you that. Yeah? So it makes you fall down into a forest full of trees, and then after that you see an elephant. This is the elephant, for example. This is the elephant. And then you explore it, and then you see the elephant. And then you have a gun with you. There, this is the gun. And then you fire it. There, that's called explore. That's how explore means. So that's what explore means. You from your home, and then you got lost in the jungle, and then you found an elephant and then shot it. That's how explore means. You explore and then you found an elephant. So now, let's move on with the third word. The third word is explorer. Now this is kind of a tricky word. Explorer. Pronounce it with me. Explorer. 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 Explorer is a person who explores places. Whenever you have ER, you know that it's a person. Explorer goes a lot of time. There. So this is you. You're traveling here. You're traveling here. We're traveling and traveling. So you can travel. If you travel for a very long time, then you're called an explorer. You're called an explorer if you travel a very long time. If you're an explorer, you have to travel a very long time. That's how you're called an explorer. Let me change it there. Now let's move on with the fourth word. The fourth word is colonist. So here I have an example. If we're from Italy, for example, this is how I dimensioned Italy. That's how I dimensioned it. It's Italy. So Italy, for example, is actually a country. Example, you're from Italy, and then you move to the boot-kicking Sicily. That's above you. You move there, and then you find a town. Here's the town. Some small houses. There, I'll tell you I'm not a very good artist, but I can draw this. There, you can see some small houses there. Those small houses are in one town. It's in one town. That town is where you live. So, you move there, and then you are not a citizen of that country. You're not a citizen, but you are actually a colonist. That's how a colonist acts. So now, let's move on with the word set. Let me read it. Settlement. Settlement. What does settlement mean? So, I just told you about that town that we just learned. So, that town was called a settlement. You build a town like this. You build a bigger town, and a bigger town, and a bigger town, and a bigger town. So if you build a town, here's a river, and here's the spot that you walk. That's how a town looks like. There. And there's even a path that leads to the bottom of a tree. There. That's how a town looks like. So if you live in a town, not in your home, but in another country, then you will call that town a settlement. A settlement. So as I told you, a town is a place where people go, or where a town is a place where people live in another country or in another state. So that's what it means. So now let's move on with the fifth word. The sixth word. The sixth word is, as you know, it is survive. Survive. Here's survive. Survive means to keep on living. Just like if you're in a boat or something, here's the Mayflower. Right now, this is the Mayflower ship, and then after the Mayflower ship passes through, then we'll go to another one. So first, the people in the Mayflower survived in the beach. This is the beach. This is the end of the beach. Here's a forest. And here's the place where the Plymouth Rock stands. There, that's the Plymouth Rock. So just like a tree fell down and then they named it a Plymouth Rock. Here's the trunk. Here's the trunk that holds it so it doesn't fall over. So there's a forest, and this is where the Plymouth Rock stands. Then they can survive there. This is the sea. This is the part where the sea is. And then this is the part where their boat is. So this is the sea. This man is stepping into the sea, and he is surviving by taking some bath in the sea. So that's how you do it. That's what survive means from sea. Let me erase it. So now let's move on with the mini quiz. It is about the mini quiz. The mini quiz is also mainly about our lesson today, and it is about explorers and early Americans. Explorers and early Americans. So, their trip was very long. Very long, and their trip was also very, very dangerous. They traveled and they saw sharks like this. This is a shark. Or they saw sea monsters like a kraken like this. They saw sea monsters that attacked them. They faced many dangers going to America. But the American people didn't know that they were coming, so they didn't set up their monsters. But the monsters just amazingly appeared. Also, sometimes tornadoes under the sea will hit their boat and then rumble their boat, making them sick to the stomach. So that's why it's a very difficult and dangerous journey. Those tornadoes were formed by many chemicals in water. Here's one chemical that's pushing all the way back. Here's one chemical that's there's hot water, and then the other chemical goes upon it, and it's cold water. And then they start moving toward each other. There's the cold water and the hot water start moving toward each other. They start moving toward each other, and then after that, for a very, very long time, they will create, in the middle, they will create a giant tornado that goes through the sea. So that's why it's dangerous. There are two types of colonies and successful colonies. What are those colonies called? Do you know? As you know, the first colony was called Plymouth. So as I told you, you see the Plymouth Rock. And then it has 1861. 1861. And that Plymouth Rock stands beside the Plymouth Colony. Here you can see this is the Plymouth Colony. Plymouth Colony was once successful, but for a few days, people left. People left to gather supplies. And when they came back, everybody was gone. You can see the houses are empty. You know, the houses are empty. Even the grass is empty. The tents are empty. Even the Plymouth Rock is empty because it's kind of like a big cave. So that wasn't a very successful colony, but a more successful colony is called Jamestown Colony. Jamestown. What is Jamestown Colony? Jamestown is a colony in America. Jamestown is the first successful. So hear this word, successful. Successful means good. It's not bad. There's an amazing story about a colony whom people had left. They left to gather supplies in England. When they came back, everybody's gone. Where did they go? Nobody knows. Even to this day, nobody knows what happened to these people. So that's why it's very dangerous to go to another country and go into another country because they weren't familiar with the animals, they weren't familiar with the plants, they weren't familiar with the people there, they weren't familiar with the things that they used there, they weren't familiar with selling their food, or even they weren't familiar with growing plants. Because when they went to America, they only gathered leaves and made a big tent, and then they slept in it. Sometimes they were poor because rain just like dripped down, the rain dripped down, and then they punched on the leaves of the tent, and then the leaves fall down, and then they were wet by the rain. But nobody would let them in. So for a few days, they would die. So that's why it's not really successful. So now that's what the colonies are all about. Those colonies, some are successful, some are not. Just like Plymouth colony is not successful, but Jamestown colony is successful. Even when people go back to get supplies, all the people were still there. They were still there. But even though they don't know they're the people, they know that they're still there. Because they're still there because it was a successful. It's very successful. No monsters live nearby. No Americans live nearby. Even no harmless or even no harmful creatures or harmful plants or harmful chemicals are living nearby. No harmful things are living nearby the Jamestown colony. Why? Because it was protected by a big stone wall. So every person who shoots an arrow at the wall wouldn't break because it's stone, metal, ice, wood, cement, or even the sun's rays, or hard metal. It's made of all kinds of fabrics, and even the heavy iron thing that they used to use, they were made of all kinds of fabrics. So it was very strong, and then if they shot an arrow at it, it wouldn't break. But if they shot at the fabric, it would break. But it only goes through the fabric and then it just stick on the wall. But any of the columns which is removed, the wall will collapse. Because collapsing only happens a little when earthquakes happen. So that's the speaking section for today. So now let's take a short break and come back and we do the speaking section, the speaking comprehension question, and the vocabulary section questions. So now please take a short break. So now let's begin. So now are you ready for the speaking section? Let's begin. The speaking section is all about explorers and early Americans. As you know, explorers and early Americans are the people who move to America. So let's begin. People start moving to America in the 1800s. They sailed through the Atlantic Ocean to America on a ship called Mayflower. Have you ever heard about Mayflower? Mayflower was the ship which goes through the sea to the place where you have been. So that's what Mayflower. The Mayflower ship. They built it just like here's the wood. This man is building it. He placed one piece of wood and another piece of wood. He tries to make it rectangular like this, and he starts building. Boom, 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 boom. Sometimes it's very hard for the explorers to come to America. Sometimes they have holes that sharks bit, or even when water goes into the ship and the ship almost sank. But thankfully, they have a few swimming gear to go and fix the ship. Thankfully. Or it's just kind of a luck. Just like it's a luck that people have. Or when the people were lucky. So if the Mayflower has any holes, then some people will jump out with their swimming gear and then they will fix it. They will risk their lives by diving. They can't see, but they can fix. But they're not allowed to use a drill. But the first time when the Native Americans had lived there was a very, very hard life. It was a true adventure. And the Native American tribes helped them. So their lives were pretty hard at first, but by working together and helping each other, they made a happy new life. So that's about the speaking section. So now let's do the speaking section questions. The first speaking section question is, how do the early Americans travel to America? As you know, the early Americans traveled to America on the Mayflower ship. They traveled to America on the Mayflower ship. The Mayflower ship was a very, very important ship which sank at the middle of the sea. They had to swim or they survived. They drifted along the sea and then they went to the island, or maybe America. So that's the first question. Let's move on with the second question. Who are the people who traveled to America? Who were they? A, they were explorers. B, they were sand. And C, they were dogs. Which one is true? As you know, it is A. A, they were explorers. Explorers were people. People can explore, but sand can't explore, or even dogs can't explore. So C and D were not true. Only A is correct. It's the best answer. Let's move on with the third question. Plymouth Colony is an unsuccessful colony that disappeared for one day. True or false? As you know, it is true. It's an unsuccessful colony and it disappeared in one day. That's true. Now, finally, the last question. Jamestown was the first successful colony that people lived in. True or false? As you know, it is true. It's the first successful colony. It's very successful. They went back to England, they got supplies, but the people didn't disappear when they came back because of the high brick wall that the enemies couldn't jump through. And there were no scary monsters or scary people living here. The most scary people in America were the Comanche. They were a very, very strong tribe of people who hit other people in other tribes. They fought the Comanche, but every tribe lost the game. So that's why the Comanche won. The Comanche was a very, very, very scary and successful tribe. So now, that's all about our lesson today. I hope you like this lesson and see you next time. Take care, everybody.